Hi, morning. It is Alison Mead from Silicon Bullet here with another bookkeeping tip video. So this week my focus is on credit notes, and I have written a blog post that should be published in the next week that has got some hints and tips of what to do with credit notes. So I will go through some of my top pointers while I'm out here in the snow, shower, walking Daisy, and give you some credit note top tips. The first top tip is when you're raising credit notes in your accounting software, make it really obvious when you print it out and send it to people that it is a credit note. Put credit note right at the top, big bold letters. And there's nothing more annoying than sending a credit note to a customer and them treating it like an invoice. Or there's nothing more annoying than being a customer and getting an invoice and it not being really obvious that it's a credit note. It's just going to make everybody's lives more easy. If you are using Xero or Sage 50 or any of the packages, it can be really easy to raise a credit note. So the first thing you need to think about is, do you have an invoice on your system that hasn't been paid and the client is waiting until you send them a credit note before they're willing to pay it? If that's the case in Xero, you can open up the invoice, click on the top right and choose Raise Credit Note. If you've already marked a payment against that invoice, then that option won't be available. So sometimes you might need to just create a new credit note from scratch. Sometimes you might want to remove the fact that the invoice has been paid, use the tool to raise the credit note, and then attach the payment back to the invoice again, she said, falling over, so that the client can then allocate that credit note against something else. You want to think about in your situation what the reason is for the credit note and what you want to allocate it against. In Sage 50, you can go to a invoice and you can choose Create Credit from Invoice, and it doesn't matter whether the invoice has been paid or not, but if the invoice is still outstanding, the system, once you've raised and saved the credit note, will ask you if you want to post the credit note and match it against the invoice. And you can only do that if the invoice remains unpaid. Do you know, I'm going to have to make this a short video this morning because it's blooming freezing. My hand is going blue already. Think about why you want a credit note. I have got clients who used to get overpayments from people, and the account support would ring them up and ask them for a credit note. And a credit note is not what you need if you have had an overpayment or if you've overpaid something. You've got to think of what accounting and bookkeeping is all about: double entry, equals and opposites. So think of a credit note as being the opposite of an invoice. So a credit note will only cancel an invoice or give somebody, a credit on their account as a result of something that's invoiced. An overpayment is just the opposite of a refund. So if someone's given you too much money and they need the money back, you've just got to refund them the money. So if there is a bank payment on the account, then you want to refund that overpayment, or a payment is the opposite of a receipt. So don't be fooled by offering people credit notes if there's been an overpayment, because then you're just going to double what you owe them and not actually give them any money back. When you receive credit notes, or when you're allocating credit notes against invoices, there are a couple of little foibles with Sage and with Xero. With Xero, when somebody is deducting a credit note from what they are paying you, then you actually need to go and open the invoice up and allocate the credit note to the invoice, which will then just leave a balance due. Now, say you've got an invoice for £1,000 and a credit for £200 and they've paid you £800. if you see £800 coming into the bank account, you can part allocate that against an invoice, but that will leave £200 outstanding, and it will leave a credit note unallocated of £200. What you actually need to do is open up that invoice and allocate the credit note to the invoice. In Sage, you also may want to allocate a credit note to an invoice and leave a balance. And in Sage, what you need to do is open up the customer receipt window as if you're receiving money from somebody. And on that customer receipt window, you would normally at the top right corner fill out how much money somebody's paid you, and then you would go down and allocate that against the invoices. If you just want to allocate a credit note against an invoice, what you will do is leave the amount in that top box as zero, come down to your credit note line and do pay in full or key in the amount you want to allocate, go to the invoice line and do pay in full or key in the amount you want to allocate, and make sure that the analysis total is zero and the amount at the top is zero, and then hit save, and that will allocate that credit note against that invoice. Sometimes you will find that you will chase somebody to pay you, and they'll go, oh, we've already paid you for that invoice, because they have allocated the credit note to a different invoice to the one that you have, and they still owe you money, but it just gets really confusing as to which invoices they owe you and which they don't. So what you can do is, if you've received remittance advice, or if you know that they've taken the credit note against a particular invoice and it's different to the one that you've allocated the payment to, you can, both in Sage, you can choose Unallocate, and you can just remove that link between that invoice and that credit note, mark them both as outstanding again, so that you can then have another go at allocating it to the correct invoice. And Daisy's just wrapping herself around my legs, excuse me. In Xero, you can, at the bottom of an invoice, at the bottom right, if you've allocated a credit note to it, click on the link down there to open up the credit note, and you can remove the allocation so that you can then match it against something else. And that can just help you figure out what's going on and enable you to send a statement to somebody. You do, in order to allocate a credit note to an invoice, they do need to be on the same customer account. So I had somebody with a query this week where they've got customers who have 2 or 3 different accounts with them, because it's a group of companies, and they've actually taken the credit note off a payment from a different company. So you will need to either edit your invoice and credit note so that you put it into the same account that the credit note is in, so they're both sitting on the same account, or what you could do is take the invoice and mark it as paid to a petty cash account on one account, and take the credit note and mark that as refunded to the same petty cash account. That will clear both those bits of paperwork, mark them as completed, and the receipt from one and the payment from the other will contra each other in the petty cash account, meaning that you haven't changed the balance in there. There's ways and means of getting around most things. If you have a problem with credit notes, with it getting messy, and you just need another pair of eyes to look over what you've done and help advise you on how you should get it cleaned up, then do get in touch. One of my bookkeeping hand-holding sessions might work perfectly for you. We can jump onto Zoom, you can share your accounts package with me, we can talk through what's gone on and what's happened, and I can help you get the best solution to get it fixed and tidy. So that is Alison Mead from Silicon Bullet with another bookkeeping tip on my dog walk with Daisy, with blooming freezing cold hands, but it has stopped snowing. Go to blog.siliconbullet.com to see the written version of my hints, tips and credit notes, which will be published in the next couple of weeks. Do subscribe to this YouTube channel for more hints and tips. I'm always happy to hear comments about things that you struggle with, to give me ideas for new blog posts and videos. And if you're either a business owner doing your own bookkeeping, or you are a bookkeeper that needs some help with using Xero or Sage 50 software, then get in touch. And look, isn't it beautiful that it might be snowing a little bit, but the blossom is out, spring is coming, and soon I should be able to lose the hat and the snood and be out in my shirt sleeves again like I was on Saturday walking. I will speak to you soon. Bye.